Good morning. In last class, we discussed about what is the importance of antenatal care, its visits and risk approach, and what are all the healthcare facilities we need to give for the mother as well as child to prevent the mortality among mother as well as child. To measure these mortality rates, we need some tools. The tools we are using to measure the mortality among the mother and child, we used to call it as indicators of maternal and child health care. And maternal and child health status is assessed by measurement of mortality, morbidity and growth and development of the child. Commonly used mortality indicators of maternal and child health care are divided into two groups. One is maternal mortality rate and mortality in infancy and childhood. Maternal mortality in infancy and childhood again divided into perinatal mortality rate, neonatal mortality rate, post-neonatal mortality rate, infant mortality rate, 1 to 4 year mortality rate, under 5 mortality rate and child survival rate. These things we are discussing in detail in next slides. First come to maternal mortality rate, or we used to call it as maternal death. According to World Health Organization, the maternal health is defined as the death of women while pregnant or within 42 days of termination of pregnancy, irrespective of duration and site of pregnancy, from any cause related to or aggravated by pregnancy or its management, but not from accidental or incidental cause. The duration of pregnancy is any death occur among the woman while she is pregnant or within 42 days after termination of pregnancy, whether it may be in the first term, second term or third term, that is irrespective of duration. And one more thing is irrespective of site of pregnancy, either it may be a uterine pregnancy or tubal pregnancy, and any cause related to or aggravated by pregnancy. Okay, either the death is due to pregnancy or any related cause during the pregnancy or its management, but not due to incidental or accidental cause. This is the definition of maternal death. I repeat it once again. The death of woman while pregnant or within 42 days of termination of pregnancy, irrespective of duration and site of pregnancy, from any cause related to pregnancy or aggravated by pregnancy, due to its physiological change and its management, but not from the accidental or incidental cause. And what do you mean by late maternal death? Early maternal death is within 42 days. Late maternal death is defined as death of women from direct or indirect obstetric cause more than 42 days but less than 1 year after termination of pregnancy. And third definition is pregnancy related death. The pregnancy related death is the death of women when pregnant or within 42 days of termination of pregnancy, same as that of maternal death. But here, irrespective of cause of death. In maternal death, in first definition, but it is not from the accidental or incidental cause. But in this pregnancy related death, it may be due to accidental or incidental cause. And according to the ICD, maternal death can be divided into two groups. Either it may be due to the obstetric cause, it is related directly, or indirect obstetric deaths. Any death resulting from the obstetric complication of pregnancy state, that is pregnancy during labor or during puerperium, either by the intervention, omission and incorrect treatment, or from a chain of event resulting from any of the above. This is direct obstetric death. What do you mean by indirect obstetric death? Any death resulting from previous existing disease or disease that developed during pregnancy. For example, whether she may be known case of diabetic before the pregnancy or she may develop diabetes during the pregnancy, that we used to call it as pregnancy induced diabetes, and which is not due to direct obstetric cause but which was aggravated by the physiological effect of the pregnancy. Change in the hormonal changes and change in the general physiology during the pregnancy. And next come to the statistical measures of maternal mortality. Either we can express in rate or by ratio. Let me discuss about the maternal mortality ratio. In ratio, numerator is not a part of denominator. Number of the maternal death during given time period per 1000 live birth during the same period of time. Total number of the maternal death in that particular year among 1000 live birth. Here the numerator is not a part of completely part of denominator. All the pregnant women may not end with live pregnancy. Sometimes they may end with stillbirths also. So that numerator is not a part of denominator. That's why this definition we used to call it as maternal mortality ratio. What do you mean by maternal mortality rate? Number of maternal death during given time period per lakh women of reproductive age group. Here numerator is a part of denominator. All the women, those who are in reproductive age group, have a chance to become pregnant, and is there any death among these pregnant women? That we used to call it as maternal mortality rate. How much is the adult lifetime risk of maternal death? The probability of dying from maternal cause during the woman's reproductive lifetime. The reproductive lifetime is from 15 to 49 years. And how much is the probability of dying from maternal cause? That we used to call it as adult lifetime risk of maternal death. The proportion of the maternal death of women of reproductive age. The number of the maternal death in a given time period divided by total death among women aged 15 to 49 years. And approaches to measuring maternal mortality. From where we should get the all information. One is by the civil registration of the birth, household survey, sisterhood method, and reproductive age mortality studies, verbal autopsy, and census. Let me explain each. What do you mean by RHIME? It is a representative resampling routine household interview of mortality with medical evaluation. From year 2000 onwards, central registration system improved the new registration system that we used to call it as RHIME. This is an enhanced form of verbal autopsy, include the various categories with the ICD-10 codes such as hemorrhage, sepsis, hypertensive disorder, labor, abortion, and other conditions. After the death of the mother, we need to collect complete information by oral discussion. This type of and identify what is the cause of death. This method we used to call it as verbal autopsy. What are the causes? Maternal deaths mostly occur from the third trimester to first week after the birth, and maternal risk of mother are particularly elevated within the first 2 days after the birth. They are at more risk. And most maternal deaths, nearly 80%, are related to obstetric complications like postpartum hemorrhage, infection, eclampsia, prolonged or obstructed labor, and complication of abortion. And these are all the causes of maternal mortality. This is the statistics collected worldwide. Here the major 25% is by the severe bleeding, next to the infection, eclampsia, obstructed labor, unsafe abortion, and other direct causes, that is 8%, and indirect causes 20%. When you come to India, the major cause of death is hemorrhage, then sepsis, hypertensive disorder, obstructed labor, abortion, and other conditions. If you compare with the developed worldwide statistics with India, the cause of death is more with hemorrhage in India compared to worldwide statistics. And these are all the following determinants for the maternal mortality in India. These determinants are divided into: one is medical cause, second is social cause. And medical factors are divided into obstetric and non-obstetric causes. As I already explained you, obstetric causes like toxemia of pregnancy, hemorrhage, infection, obstructed labor, and unsafe abortion. In non-obstetric causes are anemia, systemic diseases like the hypertension, any cardiovascular disorder, malignancy, accident. When come to the social factors, there are so many social factors will affect on the maternal health. Age at childbirth, either teenage pregnancy and elderly pregnancy both are at risk. Parity, grand multipara, they are at more risk. Too close pregnancy, there won't be a sufficient space, that is a 3-year gap between two pregnancy, they are at risk. Family size, bigger the family size, the chances of maternal mortality is more. Malnutrition, poverty, illiteracy and ignorance, and shortage of the health manpower and delivery by the untrained ayahs during international period, and poor sanitation, poor facilities and social customs. All these things during the international care are important cause for the maternal mortality. What do you mean by risk approach? Some women may develop the complication without warning signs and require emergency care. The essential obstetric care and establishment of first referral unit for the emergency obstetric care is high priority. Essential obstetric care is available for all pregnant women, and we need to have the first referral unit for emergency obstetric care at any given point of time. What are the preventive and social measures? Any attempt to lower the maternal mortality must take consideration for the following measures. As already I discussed about the importance of complete antenatal, internatal and postnatal care and services which we are rendering in all these stages can reduce the maternal mortality rate. Already we discussed about the importance of these factors, that is the early registration of pregnancy, at least 4 antenatal checkups, dietary supplementation including correction of the anemia, how much extra calories is required, how much extra protein is required, all these things we need to fulfill. Prevention of infection and hemorrhage during puerperium, proper aseptic precaution at the time of delivery, prevention of complications like eclampsia, malpresentation and ruptured uterus, they need the emergency obstetric care, and treatment of medical conditions like hypertension, diabetes and tuberculosis. They may be known case or they develop during the pregnancy, and anti-malarial and tetanus prophylaxis for all pregnant women. An important one is clean delivery practices, that is aseptic precaution should be maintained. In India, large number of the maternal death could be prevented with the help of the trained local dayas or trained female workers. Nowadays, we are advising for the institutional delivery only. Institutional delivery for the women with a bad obstetric history and high risk factor was there in the beginning. Now, under the NRHM, they are advising to have an institutional delivery and promotion of family planning. This is the right time. They are in a receptive mood, so that utilize the opportunity and they give idea regarding the family planning methods to maintain the spacing between two pregnancies, so that we can reduce the maternal mortality and child mortality. Identification of every maternal death and searching for its cause, that is verbal autopsy or RHIME. And this is about the maternal mortality. I discussed about what is the definition of maternal mortality, what is the definition of maternal mortality ratio, what is late maternal mortality or pregnancy related deaths, what are the cause for the maternal mortality rate, and what are the preventive measures for the maternal mortality rate. This you may going to get it as a main question in the exams and lot of viva questions. And next come to the mortality in infancy. Mortality in infancy is again divided into different periods. They are divided into perinatal period, early neonatal period, late neonatal period, neonatal period and post neonatal period. Why they divided into different periods? Because the chances of death or the death ratio or rate is different in different stages. Any death before 1 year from the birth is called the infant mortality rate, but the chances of the death is more in early days. And after the 28 weeks of gestation, we used to call it as the viable fetus. If any death between the 28 week of gestation till birth, the fetus born with dead, then we used to call it as stillbirth. And the death of the child between birth to 7 days is called the early neonatal period. The chances of child death is more common between the first week of pregnancy, delivery. That we used to call it as early neonatal death. There is a chance that the reporting of the stillbirth and reporting of the early neonatal death may overlap. To prevent that problem, we gave the one more death calculation, that is the perinatal death. This perinatal death is a combination of stillbirth as well as early neonatal death. And if any death occurs between 7 days to 28 days, we used to call it as late neonatal death, and death between 28 days to 1 year is called the post neonatal death. And now we will discuss about the how to calculate and what is the formula for the infant mortality rate in different stages. What do you mean by fetal death? Fetal death is a death prior to the complete expulsion or extraction from its mother or product of conception, irrespective of the duration of pregnancy. Before the expulsion from the mother, either it may be in the first, second or third trimester. And death is indicated with the fact that after such separation, the fetus does not breathe or show any other evidence of life, such as beating of heart, pulsation of the umbilical cord, and definite movement of the voluntary muscles. All these things are not there immediately after the delivery. Then we used to call it as a fetal death. It is defined as death after 20 or 28 weeks of gestation. The definition of the length of gestation varies between countries. What do you mean by stillbirth? Death of the fetus weighing 1000 grams. This is equivalent to 28 weeks of gestation or more occurring during the 1 year in every 1000 total birth. This we are calculating per 1000 live plus stillbirth. Here denominator is combination of total live birth as well as stillbirth, and numerator is fetal death weighing over 1000 grams at birth. When come to the perinatal mortality rate, it includes both late fetal death as well as the early neonatal death. Here the denominator is per 1000 live birth weighing over 1000 grams at birth, and numerator is late fetal and early neonatal death weighing over 1000 grams at birth. It is late fetal and early neonatal death weighing over 1000 grams at birth, expressed as a ratio per 1000 live births weighing over 1000 grams at birth. We can calculate this by this formula. And what is perinatal mortality rate in well-established countries and poor established countries? In well-established countries, the reporting is good, so that we can calculate the things with this formula. That is a late fetal death, that is more after the 28 week of pregnancy, and early neonatal death, that is the in first week from birth to 7 days in that particular year, per 1000 live birth as well as late fetal death. In less well established areas, here the numerator is same, but denominator only we are taking it as 1000 live birth in that year. In less well established areas, it is difficult to calculate the late fetal death, and that's why here the denominator is only live birth in that particular year. And what is the importance of this perinatal mortality rate? Why we need to calculate these different mortality rates in child up to 1 year? Deaths occurring after the birth are incorrectly registered as a stillbirth, and the stillbirth is increased and the neonatal death rate is lowered. If you report it as a stillbirth, neonatal death rate is lowered. And the perinatal mortality being the combination of stillbirth as well as early neonatal death is not influenced by this error. To reduce this error, we are calculating, instead of calculating stillbirth and the neonatal death, we are calculating the perinatal mortality. The perinatal period occupies 168 hours, that is 0.5% of the average lifespan. But there are more deaths in this period than the next 30 to 40 years of life in many developing countries. Next, come to what is the neonatal mortality rate. As we already know that neonatal period commencing from birth and ending 28 days after the birth. The neonatal mortality rate is the number of the neonatal death in given year per 1000 live birth in that particular year. Here the denominator is live birth and death is neonatal mortality is tabulated as number of the death of children under 28 days in that particular year per 1000 live birth in same year. Neonatal mortality is a measure of intensity with which the endogenous factors like low birth weight and birth injuries are the main common factor for the neonatal mortality rate. And neonatal mortality is directly related to the birth weight and gestational age. Neonatal mortality is greater in boys throughout the world because newborn boys are biologically more fragile than girls. But next, post-neonatal mortality. Post-neonatal means after the 28 days up to 1 year. The ratio of the post-neonatal death is given in a year to the total number of the live birth in same year. It is expressed per 1000. Number of the death of children between 28 days to 1 year in particular given year divided by 1000 total live birth in same year. And next is the infant mortality. Number of the death of children less than 1 year from birth to 1 year divided by number of the live birth in same year. It is expressed multiplied by 1000. The ratio of infant death registered in a given year to the total number of the live birth registered in same year, usually expressed as rate per 1000 live birth. Then what is the importance of this infant mortality rate? Infant mortality is universally regarded as a most important indicator of health status of community and indicator of level of living of people in general and effectiveness of the MCH services in particular. We can assess the effectiveness of the MCH services in that particular area and we can assess the mainly we can assess the best indicator to assess the health status of a community. And infant mortality is important because infant mortality is the largest single age category of the mortality and death at this age are due to peculiar set of disease and condition to which the adult population is less exposed. The cause of the death in this age group is entirely different from the different age group or mainly the adult age group. And infant mortality is affected rather quickly and directly by the specific health programs, hence may change more rapidly than the general death rate. The causes are specific and most of the causes are preventable causes. If we improve the healthcare status or the healthcare facilities in a community, we can drastically reduce these infant mortality rates. And what is the importance of the death after 1 year up to 4 years? This is calculated by number of the death of children aged between 1 to 4 years divided by total number of the children aged 1 to 4 years of same year multiplied by 1000. It is usually we calculate the mid-year population of that age group. Then under 5 mortality. Here the numerator is number of the death of children less than 5 years. It includes 1 to 4 year plus infant mortality rate and denominator is number of the live birth in the same year and multiplier is 1000. And what are the causes for this under 5 mortality? The causes are different for the infant mortality and causes are different for the 1 to 4 year and under 5 mortality. The major burden is 40% with the neonatal cause and 14% with pneumonia and remaining are meningitis, diarrhea, measles, malaria, AIDS. Now compile all these things. I prepared one table what are all the indicators and what is its significance. Definitely it will going to help to remember the whole thing, to write the main question, as well as you can give the better answer in the Bible. First indicator is perinatal mortality rate. It gives a good indication for extent of pregnancy wastage, and it indicates the quantity and quality of the healthcare services available to the mother as well as newborn. It reflects the result of maternity care more clearly than the neonatal death rate. These are the significance of perinatal mortality. By assessing the perinatal mortality, we can assess all these services. When come to the neonatal mortality measures of intensity with the endogenous factors. The endogenous factors are low birth weight, birth injury. These are the main cause for the death in this particular group. If you give the importance for the low birth weight and birth injuries, we can reduce the neonatal mortality. Neonatal mortality is directly related to the birth weight and gestational age. And post-neonatal mortality rate. Post-neonatal mortality is dominated by the exogenous factor, and neonatal is by the endogenous factor, and post-neonatal is by the exogenous factors like environmental and social factors. For example, diarrhea, respiratory infection are the main cause for the post-neonatal death. The main cause of post-neonatal mortality is again congenital anomalies. Neonatal mortality increases steadily with birth order also, and infant born into already large families run a higher risk of post-neonatal mortality, and death due to infection is more common in post-neonatal mortality. By assessing the post-neonatal mortality, we can assess all these services. And come to infant mortality rate. It is universally regarded as the most important indicator of the health status of community. Indicators of level of living of people in general and effectiveness of the MCH service in that particular area. When come to 1 to 4 year mortality rate, it is more refined indicators of the social situations in a country. It reflects the adverse environmental health hazards like malnutrition, poor hygiene, infection, accident. These are all the main cause for 1 to 4 year mortality rate. In the age group of 1 to 4 years, the second year period is a more crucial one. The highest rate of the death is more common after the second year. In the developed countries, the death in second year of life commonly accounts for about 50% of the all death between 1 to 4 years. And come to under 5 mortality, this is the best single indicator of social development and well-being rather than the GNP per capita. As from the reflect income, nutrition, healthcare and basic education. We can assess all these factors by assessing the under 5 mortality. Is it clear? What are all the indicators? What is its importance to calculate these indicators to assess the different services in a community? What do you mean by child survival index? The basic measures of the infant and child survival is under 5 mortality, that is number of the death under the age group of 5 years per 1000 live birth. This can be calculated by subtracting under 5 mortality from 1000 and divided by 10. Here we take an example. Under 5 mortality in India is 52 for calculation, and we calculate the child survival index. It comes around 94.8%. And what are the factors affecting the infant mortality rate? These are broadly classified into biological, economical and cultural and social factors. As already we discussed, biological factors are birth weight of the child, age of mother, birth order, birth spacing, multiple pregnancies, family size and high parity. This all comes under the biological factors. When come to the economic, infant mortality is high in low socioeconomic classes and slums, and cultural and social factors are breastfeeding factors, whether they are giving the importance to exclusive breastfeeding and continue the breastfeeding up to 2 years, religion and cost, and early marriage. Again there is a chance of teenage pregnancy, And quality of mothering is more important whether they belongs to any socio-economic group. And maternal education, quality of healthcare available in that particular area, broken families, illegitimacy, unwanted pregnancy, unwanted child may not get the better service from the family as well as from the healthcare services. And ritual habits and the customs. Untrained dayas, they may create the complications by fail to conduct the proper aseptic precautions for conducting delivery and bad environmental sanitation. All these factors are responsible for the infant mortality rate. Again, infant mortality rate is a main question for you people. And what are the leading causes for 1 to 4 years? Again, it is different in developing country as well as developed country. In developing countries, causes direct disease, respiratory infection, malnutrition, infectious disease, other febrile diseases and accident and injuries. But when come to developed countries, first is the accident, congenital anomalies because of the elderly pregnancy, malignant neoplasia, influenza and pneumonia. And what are the causes of perinatal mortality are again divided into antenatal cause. Antenatal causes are one is maternal disease. If she is suffering from hypertension, any cardiovascular disorders, diabetes, tuberculosis, anemia, or any pelvic diseases like uterine myomas, endometriosis, ovarian tumor, or anatomical defect like uterine anomalies and incomplete cervix, incompetent cervix. Endocrine imbalance leads to inadequate uterine preparation, blood incompatibility, that is RH incompatibility, malnutrition, toxemia of pregnancy, antepartum hemorrhage, congenital defect, and advanced maternal age. When come to the intranatal cause, first is the birth injury or birth asphyxia, prolonged effort time, and obstetric complications. In postnatal cause, first is the prematurity and respiratory distress syndrome, respiratory and elemental infections, and congenital anomalies. Apart from all these antenatal, internatal, and postnatal cause, there are some unknown cause or not clinically ascertainable. Is there any preventive measures for all these things? The preventive and social measures are perinatal nutrition during pregnancy, during lactation, and prevention of infection during pregnancy, at the time of delivery, and during the postnatal period for the mother as well as for the newborn baby. And breastfeeding, importance of exclusive breastfeeding and continuation of the breastfeeding up to 2 years and starting the weaning at right age. And growth monitoring is usually managed at the Anganwadi level. The regular monitoring of the weight of the child up to 5 years. And family planning, we need to advise the temporary as well as the permanent family planning method depending upon the family size. And sanitation during the pregnancy, at the time of delivery, and during postnatal period is more important to prevent the infection for the mother as well as for the newborn baby. And provision of family health care, socio-economic development and education for the mother as well as for the family members. And what are all the preventive measures for the stillbirth? Pathology in course of pregnancy as well as the high BP are main complications for the stillbirth. RH incompatibility, diabetes, premature rupture of membrane, and some causes are difficult and impossible to eliminate such as multiple pregnancy, cord anomalies, fetal malformation, and placental anomalies. These are all the main cause for the stillbirth, and these things we need to take it as a high risk and give the special care. And what are all the measures taken by the government under the National Population Policy? The initiative taken are based on the causative factor for the maternal health, infant health, and subdivided into perinatal, early neonatal, and neonatal death. They give complete goal under the National Population Policy. These are all the following initiatives. First is launch of immunization strengthening project to prevent the 9 killer diseases, and organization of the RCH camp, health melas, and RCH outreach scheme to reach the disadvantaged segment of the population. Launch project for the hepatitis B vaccine and immunization program. Operationalization of the newborn care facilities in identified weak districts. Special care for the weak districts. Operation research with the ICMR for provision of home-based neonatal care through the community level providers like the all the ANMs and Anganwadi workers. And policy for the exclusive breastfeeding up to 6 months. They made it as a rule. And preparation and approval of the concept note on development of the community-based midwives. Implementation of the IR training to provide the key message to the newborn health. And adoption of the IMNCA to incorporate the newborn issue and development of the IMNCI, integrated management of neonatal and childhood illnesses. And this is all about the recommendations given in the National Population Policy. In today's discussion, you may going to get it as a two main questions. One is for the maternal mortality rate, second is for the infant mortality rate, and what are the how to calculate these indicators, what are the formula for all these indicators, and what are all the factors responsible for the different death at different stages, and what are all the preventive measures. I hope you understand about the what are all the totally we used to call it as a indicators of MCH care. Sometimes they may going to ask it as a main question as a indicators of MCH care, or they may ask only the indicators of maternal mortality, or they may going to ask it as indicators of child health, and most of the vital questions are there in this topic. Thank you.